Good afternoon again. This is Dr. Olu Asekun here. Welcome to my podcast. This podcast will be going on by God's grace every Wednesday, 12 p.m., where we'll be answering immigration questions. This is Dr. Olu Asekun here. Today, by God's grace, we'll be discussing student visa. Podcast will be going on by God's grace. We'll be discussing student visa, 12 p.m. So if you have questions regarding student visa, today you are welcome to send in your questions. Student visa will be going on by God's. Usually we receive lots and lots of questions regarding student status, especially from foreigners here in the United States. Some people want to know whether if you enter the United States with a visiting visa, B1, B2, whether you can change your status to that of student. Yes. The answer is yes, you can change your status if you meet certain requirements. You can change your status if you meet certain requirements. So we'll be discussing the requirements today, but it is better if we receive questions so that we can target the response to the specific questions that you may have. So we love questions. Send in your questions. As we said, this will be going on every Wednesday, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, that is Dallas time. So today we are discussing F1 status. So if you are a student or a prospective student, or you have questions regarding student status in the United States, please go ahead and send in your questions. Send in your questions. While waiting for questions, I want to discuss certain things about student status. Talking about student status, it is one of the most regulated visa category in the United States. And that is understandable because if you look at the history of terrorist attack in the United States, more than 80% of terrorist attack in the United States have been carried out by people who are on student status. Student status is one of the few visa categories that does not have expiration. It is usually valid for duration of status. And because it does not have expiration, a lot of people used to abuse that privilege. You see people who claim to be students for years, yet they didn't attend any school. They do other things, they work, they do businesses, and whenever the authorities or anyone asks them about their status, they tell them that they are on student status, they are on student visa, simply because there is no expiration. So this gave them kind of opportunity to plan terrorist attack in the United States. So after the 9/11 terrorist attack, student status was strengthened. Student visa was strengthened. And now, if you are on student visa and you do not go to school, it is very easy for immigration or the authorities to know that you are not attending school. And of course, that means the status becomes invalid. So that kind of student will be illegal or out of status. So now, if you apply for student status, you have to attend school and you have to register for a full-time course. You cannot register for 3 or 6 college credit. That will kick you out of student status almost immediately. So there are so many regulations that you have to comply with nowadays. Someone on student status is only allowed to work maximum of 20 hours per week on campus, not outside campus. Someone who is on CPT may be allowed to work outside campus. That is, depending on the course that you are doing. Someone who has graduated or is about to graduate can also apply for what is called OPT, optional practical authorization is received. Then the student can work for any employer in the area of study for up to 1 year, and in some cases beyond 1 year, depending on the nature of the course. If it's a STEM program, yes, student can be authorized to work for more than a year for employers. But if it's a non-STEM course, optional practical training is only valid for 1 year. Employment authorization issued in that category is valid only for 1 year. Again, for those who are on student status, they have to also show that they are complying with the other condition of their student visa. Again, I've mentioned having to register for the minimum number of credit hours. You have to be full-time. You cannot do it part-time. You also cannot be working outside campus except you are authorized to work as a CPT student. So if you do that, your employment authorization will allow you to work outside campus. You can also apply for EAD before your graduation. You cannot apply for EAD after graduation except in limited circumstances. And limited circumstances, if, for example, you are faced with substantial financial difficulty, you may be able to apply for employment authorization based on financial hardship. An example of financial hardship, let's say your sponsor, maybe parents who are sponsoring you, unfortunately lost their job or became ill, sickness issue, or even death of the sponsor that you can show will lead to substantial hardship. On the basis of that, you can apply to be authorized to work while also going to school. This is not applicable for everybody. It's not applicable in every situation, but it is applicable in certain instances. So we are waiting for questions. We wait for questions so that we'll be able to address it in a way that it meets specific instances rather than just talking generally. So we are waiting for questions. If you have questions, please send in your questions. We are waiting for questions. This is a program that will be repeating every week by God's grace, every Wednesday, Dallas time, that is Central Standard Time. Going forward, we'll be repeating this program. It's a weekly program by God's grace. Every Wednesday from 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, every Wednesday, live. So you can ask all the questions that you have. Today, we are discussing student status. Because I'm an immigration practitioner, it is not easy for me to come up with questions. So I prefer that people ask the questions, then I answer it. So if you have questions, send in your questions and I'll be able to answer it. For now, we'll be taking a short break while you send in your questions. Thank you. Welcome back. This is Dr. Olu Asekun again. This is our live podcast. Today we are discussing F1 student status. We are discussing F1 student status. Please send in your questions. Send in your questions. We are doing this every Wednesday, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. It is easier when we receive questions so that we address the specific questions instead of just talking generally. So if you have questions, please send it in. Today we are discussing student status, student visa. Everything you need to know about student visa. Please send in your questions. This is available every Wednesday free of charge. Today we are discussing student visa. So if you have questions regarding student visa, whether you want to know if you have been out of status, you want to know if you can change your status from visiting to student while in the US, yes, it is possible. You want to know if you have been out of status, how you can be reinstated. Yes, all these are possible, but we want to hear your questions so that we can address the specific questions. In the meantime, I'll talk about reinstatement. If you have been on student status and you have done one thing or the other to violate your status, maybe you did not register sufficient credit hours, or maybe you did not even attend school when you are supposed to, and as a result, you are out of status. Maybe you completed your first degree, maybe your bachelor degree, and you completed your OPT, and you are supposed to go back to school, maybe for your master's, and for some reason, you didn't get the I-20 on time, or something just kicked you out of status. You want to know the process for reinstatement. Yes, it is possible to be reinstated. If any of those conditions or any other condition caused you to be kicked out of student status, to be out of status, and you want to apply for reinstatement, the procedure is very simple. You get a new I-20 from your school. Some schools may be reluctant in issuing I-20 for a student who have been in status. But if you are able to get I-20, or if you consult an experienced immigration attorney who could help you answer questions that the school may have regarding your eligibility for reinstatement. So if you are able to get I-20, then you have to write a very detailed statement explaining the circumstances or factors that led to you being out of status, or led to you missing classes, or led to you being unable to register sufficient number of credit hours. So you also have to indicate that apart from those things that prevented you from maintaining status, you have not otherwise worked illegally. Unlawful employment is a major factor in reinstatement. If you show that you have not worked illegally, if you have not worked unlawfully, whatever factors that prevented you from maintaining your student status, if that factor did not cause you to work unlawfully, the probability of getting you reinstated will be very high. But if there is a record that you have been working unlawfully, then that may show your intent and that may be a problem. But again, as I always caution, immigration is not a one-cap-fits-all. Every situation is different and every circumstances are considered. So, in order to determine whether you'll be able to get reinstated, it's better to consult with an experienced immigration attorney. But on the face of it, in general, the general rule is that reinstatement is possible. Reinstatement is possible if you have been out of status. Reinstatement is possible. So sending your questions, waiting for questions so that we can answer them in a specific way. Please send in your questions. Send in your questions. Today we are discussing student status. Today we are discussing student status. Please send in your questions. If you have other questions regarding student status, please send in your questions. Even if your question is connected with obtaining green card, we will be able to answer it. Send in your questions. So while waiting for questions, we'll be taking coffee break again. While waiting for your questions, please continue to send in your questions. Am I still on? Another interesting thing about our office, we try as much as possible to put smiles in our client faces.
As soon as we call that client, it's such a great feeling. I mean, at first when we're pranking them, I feel so bad.
I was coming from work because like I told you, I'm like a member of this family, and call Asekun, he wants to talk to you.
There is a strategy that we like to do. We like to surprise them. We would call and Mr. Olu would talk to them, letting them know, well, maybe something has gone wrong with their case.
He made it look as if there was no approval. But then I announced, okay, I'm coming to your office. He said, okay, but just drive carefully and things like that. So, okay, I'm waiting for you. Then when I came into the office, even the receptionist, her face was just blank. What is happening? He said, okay, let me tell him that you're around. I went to the office. He had already assembled the entire staff. And when I came in, wow, the balloon just busted. When he said, well, this is what, he made it look as if it was going to be like, and then he now, congratulations. He didn't say you were approved, he said, we have been approved.
They get so excited, they're happy, they start crying, they're just super excited. I had times where I cry with them because you feel what they're feeling. And you understand what they go through, and it, like I mentioned, like we all handle their case, we all know their cases, and it's like I am one of them, and I understand what's going on. And I'm happy for them that it's finally ended and they are now where they want to be. That is our main goal.
And I jumped. I didn't know how or where the strength came from. I didn't even think I could knock him down. I held his neck because that particular issue was so naughty. but God just used him, and everything was resolved, and I got my approval. The entire office, they were so happy, they were jubilating as if it was one of them or their own child.
Having someone go from a super low to a high of something, such a positive result, it feels amazing, honestly.
It's really, really a big challenge. But again, we were able to put smiles in her face, and we were able to get her substantial amount of money from the insurance company. Even after paying all her medical bills, she was able to smile to the bank.
Our clients love us because we care. Their experiences are our experiences. Their joy is our joy. Their sorrow is our sorrow. So we really, really care about everyone that walks through those doors. And I think that that's what makes us special.
And then I rolled on the ground. All of them, I was, Nigerians, how we react to issues. I was rolling on the ground, thanking God. Is that not caring what I was wearing or who I was looking? But the good thing is that the entire office was happy with me, not for me, because they felt that it was their win, it was their own. And we all celebrated. It was a good thing.
Another interest.
Yeah, this thing is a little fast, so I still have to push it forward. Are we live now? Yeah. Okay, welcome back. This is Dr. Olu Asekun again. Welcome to our live podcast. Today is Wednesday. This program will be going on every Wednesday, 12 p.m. Dallas time. That is Central Standard Time, and it is free of charge. So send in your questions. Today we are discussing student status. Yes, I think there are a couple of questions coming in. The first question, good morning. My son is back home in Africa, Nigeria. He's not actually my biological son, but he lived with me all along. I got admission for him, but he has been having issues with, I think this is SAT. Is there another way to go about it? Well, that would be a tough one, because if you cannot pass SAT, I'm not sure if we'll be able to get I-20. But I also know for a fact that depends on individual school. There are some schools that issues I-20 without requiring SAT. I believe so. So that's a school thing. That's not an immigration thing. It's not an immigration requirement. It's a school thing. Just like in Nigeria, I mean, you can have one university accept certain score, while another university may say that, okay, that score cannot get you admission in our own school. So it's a school thing. It's not immigration thing. That is not an immigration thing. It's a school thing. So if he's having issues with SAT, maybe you should start looking at schools that does not require SAT. Okay, another question. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to meet with your farm at YouTube. God bless all. Thank you too. Okay, the first writer. They are super wonderful people. My family, wife and 3 children got their green card last year, August, after a long wait. Amazing staff, from the reception to all the staff to the attorney. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome back, Dr. Olu. Thank you. Okay, Another question, should I be worried about discrimination and safety concern while planning to attend school in the United States? No, there is nothing like that. The truth of the matter is that every society all over the world, including Nigeria, have their own challenges. Every society have their own challenges. And again, America has gone far in dealing with racism or insecurity or all those things. They have gone far. So there's really nothing to be worried about. But again, you have the choice to make a selection. I mean, there are areas where you have large number of blacks. There are areas where you have large number of Nigerians. There are areas that are known for specific groups. So if you are not comfortable with the generality of the population, you can send your children to areas you are comfortable with. I can tell you that Dallas, for example, Dallas is a relatively safe society. When you talk about discrimination, Dallas is relatively safe. Houston is relatively safe. New York. In fact, America has gone beyond that. So that is not an issue in this age. That is not an issue at this time. So I think you just have to trust God that things will work out. But even in Nigeria, things happen. I mean, students die in universities in Nigeria too. I mean, we read cases of students who are attacked by cult members, even in Nigeria. So this is not about discrimination or anything. So you are relatively safe. If you can afford it, why not? Give your children solid education. I don't see any reason for concern. Please keep your questions coming. Keep your questions coming in. Today we are discussing student status. Keep the questions coming in. I don't think there's any more questions. Keep your questions coming in. Okay, I think there's a question. What is the difficulty in obtaining permanent residency after school, transitioning from F1 status? Well, that is not about question. That is not a question about student status. That is more about employment-based questions. But that is not what we are discussing today. But I will give you a general idea. If you plan to stay behind after your education, if your intent is to stay behind and become a permanent resident, that starts from the initial planning. That starts from what course you are going to school to study. That requires a lot of research before you make up your mind, before you accept admission for any particular course. Because some courses, when you study certain courses, it is easier to become a permanent resident. It is easier to transition from student to permanent resident. But for other courses, it may be extremely difficult. I'll give you a couple of examples. In the United States, there is a law called labor certification. That law requires every employer to offer job to American citizens first before considering a foreigner. So no matter what you study, if you go into the labor market, Americans are going to have the upper hand. And of course, every employer are required by law to first offer the position to American citizens before they can consider a foreigner. This is why I said courses matter. So if your intent is to stay back upon completion of your study, then you need to think about that before you make up your mind on what to study. That law that requires American employers to offer position to American citizens first, that law has a couple of exceptions. The first exception is nursing. If you study nursing, yes, you are going to have an advantage. You are going to have an easy transition from student to permanent resident. For those who study nursing, employers are not required to offer the position to American citizens first. In other words, you have a level playing field. So if you graduate in school now, just before your graduation, just apply for OPT, optional practical training. Immigration will give you employment authorization that is valid for 1 year. So before that 1 year, just make sure you pass your board exam. Once you pass your board exam, you can then apply for a job. And like I said, because employers are not required to give priority to Americans, it is extremely easy to get a job in that category. And of course, once you get an employer willing to hire you, they can as well petition for you because they are not going to go through any hardship in completing that process. In fact, you have competitions. You have multiple employers offering you job if you study nursing. Another exception is physical therapists. Those who study physical therapy, or what Nigerians call physiotherapists. I don't know what they call it in other countries, but in the United States, it is called physical therapy. So if you study physical therapy, yes, the employers are not required to offer American citizens the job first. So you will have a level playing field in order to get a job. And once you have a sponsor, once you have an employer, it is going to be easy to transition from student to a permanent resident. Unfortunately, these are not applicable. These are not available in other professions. Even if you are a medical doctor, it is not available. If you are a lawyer, it is not available. If you are an engineer, if you are an accountant, any of those courses, the employers will have to offer the position first to American citizens before they can consider you. Having said that, if you study a 4-year course and you graduate, the employer may not be able to offer you a green card. They may not be able to petition for you green card without offering the position to American citizens first, but they may be able to offer you temporary employment. For example, there is something called H-1B. H-1B is a temporary employment for skilled workers. The minimum requirement is for someone to have a bachelor's degree, and it must be a 4-year college. If you go through a 3-year college or a 2 or 3 year program, it will not qualify for H-1B. So if H-1B is approved for you, you will be authorized to work for the employer for up to 3 years, and it is renewable for another 3 years. So you can be on H-1B for up to 6 years. But the challenge with H-1B is that there is a limited number of H-1B visas that immigration can approve per year. It is only limited to 65,000 applications per year. So because we have large number of foreigners in American schools, Usually, we have more than 65,000 people applying every year. So that means every year, immigration will have to ballot to select those 65,000. And if you are unfortunate, your application is not selected, then the employer may not be able to employ you. So those are the limitations of H-1B. So let's see the next question. This apply to IT industry too? No, the exception that I've given you is only for physical therapy and nursing. IT or any other profession, they have to go through the process of labor certification, which means the employer will have to offer the position to American citizens first before they can offer it to foreigners, except if the employer wants to offer the temporary one, which is H-1B. But again, because of the fact that H-1B is limited in number, there is stiff competition every year, and this competition is usually resolved by ballot every year. So let's see the next question. What are the travel restrictions to consider as F1 visa holder? Yes, this is a very good question. This is a very, very good question. What are the travel restrictions to consider as F1 visa holder? I said it's a very good question because it is important to understand the difference between a visa and I-94. I've said it multiple times on this program. A visa is not the document that keeps anybody in legal status in the United States. Visas are only relevant when you are outside the United States. So visas are documents directed to the airline so that they bring you in without bringing an illegal person into the United States. So if you are on student visa, while you are in your home country and you apply for student visa, usually the U.S. Embassy will give you what is called F1 visa. Now, that kind of visa usually have the expiration date. In some countries, they give you up to 2 years F1 visa. However, when you land in the United States, that is when you will be given the I-94. That is what determines your legal status. That one usually does not have expiration. And for as long as you are in school and you are keeping all the terms of the F1 status, you remain legal. Even if you continue going to school for the next 10 years, you still be legal. However, on the other hand, if you enter the United States with a B1, B2 visa, for example, visiting visa, and then you change your status to F1, the moment the F1 status is approved, the moment the student status is approved, it means that your B1, B2 visa is no longer valid. Your B1, B2 visa becomes void because now you have changed your status. You are no longer a visitor. You are now a student. So because you have changed your status, the visa on your passport is no longer valid. If you remain in the United States and you continue to go to school and you continue to comply with the terms of your F1 status, you are okay. If you stay in school for the next 10 years, you will be maintaining legal status. However, if you plan to travel after your change of status from visiting visa to student visa, then any country you go to, you will be required to apply for F1 visa, which is student visa. Because remember, initially when you came with student visiting visa. Now your status has changed while in the US. So if you travel and because that visiting visa is no longer valid, you will not be able to come back into the US with the with the visiting visa. So you'll be required to apply for F1 visa in order to come back to the US. And of course, applying for F1 visa means that you will have to show to the embassy that you are actually going to school. It's not enough to submit the approval. You have to show evidence that you are actually going to school. This could be in form of your transcript, and of course, to show that you are in school. Then you will be able to get the F1 status and be able to come back into the United States with F1 status. The next question, can I travel outside of the United States during my program of study, and should I have a valid F1 visa and the appropriate travel document to re-enter the country? Yes, I think I just answered that question. If you are on F1 status, if you enter the United States originally as F1 student, yes, you can continue to travel. You can continue to use the F1 visa until the expiration. Even at the expiration, you can also apply to extend it. However, if you enter the United States with a different visa and then change your status to student visa, yes, while you are in school, you can travel, but if you travel, you will need to apply for student visa before you can come back, because that means that whatever visa you came with initially is no longer valid when your change of status to F1 was approved. So in order to come back, in order to re-enter, you have to present a new valid visa, which will be F1. And I just said that in order to do that, you have to show evidence that you have actually been attending school since your F1 status was approved. So that could be in the form of maybe your transcript or any other evidence you may have to show that you have been going to school. The next question, what happens to an F1 visa once an application for green card has been submitted? Can I still attend school while the green card application is pending? Yes, valid question. But caveat, let me explain this. Whenever anyone applies for green card in the United States, you will be submitting an application to register permanent residence or adjust status. That is an immigrant petition. It is different from non-immigrant status. F1 is a non-immigrant status. H1B is a non-immigrant status. B1, B2 visiting visa is a non-immigrant status. So the moment you apply for an immigrant status in the form of green card, it means that whatever visa you have, whatever non-immigrant status you have becomes invalid. The only exception in that category is H1B. For H1B, you are allowed to continue to use the H1B visa for some time, depending on your category, especially if you are in the process of labor certification and all of that, you can continue to use the H1B visa. But for every other kind of visa, the day you submitted and immigration issued a receipt for the adjustment application, for the green card application, your previous visa becomes invalid. From that moment, you are a potential immigrant. Yes, you can continue to go to school, but you will no longer be treated as F1 status. You will now be treated as an applicant for immigrant visa. And depending on how long you have been living in the United States, and depending on the state where you are, and depending on whether you have documentary evidence of depending on the state where you are, you may be eligible to actually pay as in-state student, because from that moment, you are no longer considered a foreigner. You are no longer considered a student. You are no longer considered being on student status. You are now considered as a potential immigrant. Yes, you can continue to go to school while your application is pending. The next question: when will you talk about business person that he or she want to have company in America and marriage status to become a... Well, we have said this before now. If you... Okay, I think somebody is calling in. Let's see if I can take that call before we continue with this question. Hello?
Hi, I have a question for you.
Yes, can you please introduce yourself and tell us where you are calling from, and then go ahead with your question.
Yes, this is Kimberly. I'm asking about an F1 visa. If the F1 visa holder falls out of status, are they subject to immigration consequences, including deportation or removal proceedings?
Well, that's a very good question. The answer is yes and no, and I will have to explain it. You see, immigration law has not changed in the United States in decades. However, what has changed is the enforcement of the immigration law. So what changed depends on each administration. So during the last administration, during Donald Trump administration, yes, the enforcement of immigration law changed because they paid more emphasis on enforcement. So during those periods, if you are on student status and you didn't go to school and you are out of status, yes, immigration could approach you, whether you committed a crime or not. Immigration could approach you, they could knock on your door, pick you up, put you in removal proceedings. Yes, that was the enforcement priority of the Donald Trump administration. However, when this new administration came in, they also set their own priority. So right now, their own immigration priority is basically based on crime. So they are putting emphasis on people who have committed crime. So those are the people they are sending to removal proceedings right now. More emphasis is being placed on crime right now. So in other words, if you are on student status or on any other status and you are out of status under this current administration, for as long as you do not have criminal offense, they may not put you in removal proceedings because that is not the priority of this current administration. This current administration is prioritizing removal of people who have committed criminal offense. I hope I've been able to answer.
Something violent, or is it any criminal record? Like, what about, say, a speeding ticket that went unpaid?
Well, it has to be a significant crime because most Americans, whether foreigner or not, most Americans do get speed tickets. So that's not considered a major. That's not considered a major crime. So it will have to be a real crime for which somebody is arrested. Usually, most speeding violations do not end up in arrest or detention. So usually you are just given citation and you pay the fines. But so those ones cannot lead to removal proceedings. It has to be something that leads to an arrest and detention. And usually when somebody is detained, then there is something called immigration hold. Immigration will place a hold on such a person. So when the criminal when the crime is either resolved or the person is granted bond, then now you will have to face immigration consequence, because even though you post a bond for the criminal case, that does not mean that you will be released, because now, instead of releasing you to go home, they will now release you to immigration, and immigration will now process you. So once immigration start processing you, they will now decide whether they want to detain you or whether they just want to issue an NTA for you to
Okay.
appear in court. So that is the way that one works.
Okay, so someone could end up in a detention center if the crime was serious enough.
Yes, and yes, if you end up being detained for the crime, yes, you may end up in immigration detention center as well, and you may also end up in removal proceedings, and you may end up in your home country.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. I believe you answered my question.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
call. Now we are going to go on a short break again. I'm a little thirsty. I need to get some water.
I was looking for Lawyer Asekun for help concerning my immigration status because everything was upside down. Because I couldn't believe, I was even thinking maybe I'll be sent out back to Nigeria. So on getting to know him, he explained everything to me, what I'm going to do, that he's going to do everything. So fortunately for me, everything was done from him. Dr. Lawyer Asekun is the best lawyer so far in Texas, because I can introduce as many as whoever is having problem, especially when it comes to immigration. I'm going to introduce Lawyer Asekun because he's the best lawyer. So far, so good.
Our goal here is to make our clients happy, especially in the area of immigration, family law, and personal injury.
I was looking.
I still have the music. Thank you. Welcome back. Please keep your questions coming. Please keep your questions coming. As we said before, this program will be going on by God's grace every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Dallas time. That is 12 p.m. Dallas time, Central Standard Time. There are a few more questions yet to be answered. Let's see. Okay, when will you talk about business person that he or she want to have company in America and marriage status to become permanent resident? So as I said before, we we have been saying it for weeks now, and I'm going to repeat it again today. If there are specific questions that you want us to address, please send in your question in advance. Send it to us on WhatsApp. Send it to us on our Facebook page. Send it to us on YouTube, or even as we are having this conversation now, you can tell us that, okay, for next week, this is the topic I want you to discuss, so that we know that week, that will be the topic we are discussing. But for today, we are discussing student status. So, next question. Are visas all the same? I mean to say, is there preferences in visa categories, saying like students superior to visitors? This question is kind of a little confusing. I mean, different visas cannot be the same. I mean, and that does not mean that one is superior to the other. So using the word superior is what is a little confusing. Different visas have different purpose. Different visas have different mission. Even from the name, you can see the purpose of different categories. For example, visiting visa, that is B1, B2. B1 is a visitor for business. B2 is visitor for pleasure. So if you apply for B1 visa, you are saying that you are coming here to discuss some business issues. Maybe you have a company you want to enter into a negotiation with, you want to come in to have a meeting with that company, or anything that has to do with business. That is B1, visitor for business. B2 is visitor for pleasure. Maybe you want to come in for holidays. You want to come for vacations. You want to go to Florida, maybe Disney World, those kind of things. Those are visitor for pleasure. So they are different. And if you are talking about F1, F1 means student, which means you are going to school. So they have different purpose. Not that one is superior to another. They just have different purpose. So if you have a H-1B visa, that means you are coming in to work for a specific employer temporarily for up to 3 years. So every visa has their category and they have what they do. But that does not mean that one visa is superior to another visa. So one is not superior. However, each visa also have their limitation. For example, if you're on B1, B2 visa, you are not required to work. You are not required to go to school. You cannot go to school on visiting visa. You cannot work on visiting visa. If you're on H-1B, for example, you can work on H-1B. You can also do a part-time course. You can go to school on part-time on H-1B. So each visa category have their own requirement. For F1, you are student. You are not allowed to work outside campus. You can work for a maximum of 20 hours on campus. And of course, depending on the course you are doing, if your course is CPT eligible, you can be given employment authorization and be allowed to work while also simultaneously going to school full time. And of course, if you have a job offer on campus, you can also work maximum of 20 hours per week on campus. So each visa category have their own strengths. But again, that does not mean that one is superior to another. So please keep the questions coming. Keep the questions coming. You can also call in, and I think our number is 817-983-4499. You can call us on WhatsApp. You can call directly. You can send in your question. You can send it through this chat. We have multiple options for you to reach us. And if you have a specific question or topic that you want us to discuss in the coming weeks, You can also send it in. You can send in your questions. Okay, I think another question just came in. Is F2 visa automatic for my family since I have F1 and in status? Well, I don't want to use the word automatic because every single non-immigrant visa, you need to understand this and you need to have this very clear. Every single non-immigrant visa is discretionary. Every single. There's a difference between immigrant visa and a non-immigrant visa. For immigrant visa, you are saying you are relocating. You want to stay in the US permanently. For a non-immigrant visa, you are saying you are coming here temporarily. You want to come in to do a specific thing, or after which you intend to go back home. So it is temporary, it is not permanent. So every single non-immigrant visa, 100%, they are discretionary. So any non-immigrant visa could be denied with or without reason. There is something under American immigration law that is called discretion. And this thing has been tested in court several times. And the court have made it very clear that when a discretionary authority is provided to a certain agency, the court cannot force them to use their discretion one way or the other. Because the moment the court is able to tell them, this is what you must do, then it is no longer discretion. It means the court is interfering with the intent of the Congress. Because it was the Congress that made the law, and they are the one that made that particular law, and they decided to make it discretionary. They are the one that decided to give the immigration enforcing agencies discretionary authorities over every non-immigrant status. And when we are talking about non-immigrant status, that includes visiting visa. That is why you will see somebody go to apply for visiting visa at a U.S. embassy, and they will just deny it, even without looking at whatever supporting document they came with. They may just look at you and say, so sorry, visa denied, because you cannot challenge it, because it is discretionary, because the consular officer or a USCIS officer, they have discretionary authority. So for every discretionary application, in addition to meeting the requirement, you still have to satisfy that the requirement that the application is approvable in the exercise of discretion. And for that reason, I cannot tell you that anything is automatic. But having said that, if you are maintaining legal status, if your children apply for, or your family apply for F2, there is likelihood that they will be approved. But again, it is not automatic. You need to get that very clear. The word automatic is off the table in every discretionary application. You may be maintaining legal status and it could still be denied for a variety of reasons. For example, maybe when you left your home country, maybe you apply for visa telling them that you are coming to the US to attend a wedding. Maybe they ask you, how long are you staying? You told them you are staying 2 weeks, and they issue you the visa. You enter the US, at the port of entry, they gave you 6 months. Before the expiration of the 6 months, you decided to change your status to student, which is legal. It is perfectly legal. It is allowed. There's nothing wrong with it. However, if you are here with your family, yes, if they approve your F1 status, the likelihood of having the F2 status approved, I will tell you, is about 90%. On the other hand, if your family members are outside the United States, this is where the issue of discretion weighs heavily against that kind of application, the F2 application. Because This time, the embassy may look at the application and say, oh, look at this person who told us he was going to attend a wedding. He got to the US and he changed his status to student. Now he wants the family to come and join him. Oh, this person is probably not intending to come back to his or her home country. They could deny it on that suspicion. Is it legal? Yes, because the non-immigrant status is discretionary. So it could also be denied for other reasons. The consular officers may look at it and say that, oh, I don't believe that this family have enough socio-economic ties to their home country, and it could be denied on that basis. So to answer your question, is it automatic? No, it is not automatic. But if you are maintaining legal status, if they are here with you, that one, the higher, the probability of getting it approved is in the 90%. But if they are outside the United States, the probability of getting it approved, I will say 50-50, depending on the specific circumstances of your case. As I always say, immigration is not a one-cap-fits-all. You may have A, apply for the same thing and they may approve it. B can apply for exactly the same thing, it may be denied, because these are areas where a lot of discretionary authorities are exercised. So I hope I've been able to answer that question. Please keep your questions coming. Keep your questions coming. Waiting for more questions. You can call in to ask questions. You can send in your questions. You can send questions through WhatsApp. You can also send in questions through this chat. Okay, I think we have another question here. Can an IT associate degree in the US combined with a business master's obtained outside the US be used to file for H-1B? Sure. The requirement for H-1B is not limited or is not connected with the school or the country where you study where you obtain your degree. It is completely immaterial. What is important for H-1B is that your degree must be based on a minimum of 4-year program. It cannot be a 2-year program. It cannot be a 3-year program. But it can be based entirely, it has to be based on a minimum of a 4-year program. So if you have a bachelor degree that is based on a 4-year program, it doesn't matter where you obtain it, whether you obtain it in the US or you obtain it from outside the US, it does not matter. You can still qualify for H-1B. However, if you obtain your degree from outside the US, you have to do what is called evaluation. So you have to get an evaluation company to evaluate your degree and make a determination that your degree is equivalent to a bachelor degree here in the United States. So that is called evaluation. So that is the only difference. That is the only connection with the US. So it does really not matter where you obtain your degree from. So if you have a master's degree, yes, you'll be eligible for H-1B. If you have a bachelor's degree, yes, you can be eligible for H-1B. But if you have an associate degree without a bachelor degree, without any other 4-year degree, you will not qualify for H-1B. That is the difference. But associate degree may qualify for something else. For example, nursing. In order to study nursing, you don't need a bachelor degree. You can go to a 2-year college. You can have an associate degree in nursing, and you can still be eligible for a green card directly for as long as you pass your board exam. So that really has nothing to do with where you obtain your degree. Even your associate degree in nursing, if it is from outside the US, you will still qualify for as long as you have passed your board exam and you have also done an evaluation of your foreign degree. So I hope I've been able to answer that question. I think there's another question. Keep the questions coming. It is only when we have questions that this program can stay for a longer time, because once we have questions, we will continue to answer them until the end of the program. But if there are no questions, that means we will really have nothing to discuss. So the next question: where can someone get an evaluation on a degree? Yes, there are several evaluation companies all around the world. In our office here, we have an evaluation company. There are evaluation companies in New York, New Jersey, in California, all over the world. But again, you have to be careful. So if you are talking about evaluation, you also have to look at your degree. For example, I keep going back to nursing because that is the examples that I've been using. So if you are going to evaluate a nursing degree, I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think you have to deal with GCFNS or something like that. Those are the body that regulate foreign nurses. So you probably be better off going through them rather than going through an outside company. So that is what I will suggest. But for other professions, yes, you can use any evaluation company to help you make the evaluation and determine whether your degree is equivalent to what is obtained here in the United States. So please keep the questions coming. We said it. This one will be going on every Wednesday, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. That is Dallas time, 12 p.m. every Wednesday. It is free of charge. You don't need to pay anything. Just send in your question. You can send your questions ahead of time. You can also send topics. You can send topics that you want us to discuss in the coming weeks. So, for example, next week, Wednesday, if there is any topic you feel we should discuss, please send it in. I see that somebody previously asked us today when we are going to discuss questions about marriage, questions about business. Somebody want to talk about business person that he or she want to have company in America and marriage status to become a permanent resident. Well, we may discuss the questions about marriage status next week. As far as somebody coming to do business in the US, I don't think that is a large topic enough for us to discuss, because it's something that I'm probably going to answer in one sentence. So I really don't know if we can keep that as a major topic of discussion. But if the writer of this question, if you have a specific questions about somebody coming to do business in the US, if you ask it today, I will answer it. I don't think that is enough for a whole topic for the day. But if you have questions about that today, we can answer it. But next week, by God's grace, we will probably be answering questions on obtaining green card through marriage. So maybe if you have questions on that, we keep that till next week. Questions relating to obtaining permanent resident through marriage. So we keep it. So if you have questions regarding business, you can ask them today. I believe those are questions I can answer with a sentence or two. So please keep the questions coming. Keep the questions coming. We have less than 30 minutes to go, so please keep your questions coming. We are going to end this by 2 p.m. Dallas time. So if you have questions, keep your questions coming. Keep your questions coming. You can send in your question on this chat. You can send in your question through our WhatsApp. Our WhatsApp number is 817-983-4499. I hope I'm right. Keep the questions coming. Questions about student status, that is what we are discussing today. We've talked about someone on student status being out of status, how you can apply for reinstatement. We've talked about whether or not it is possible for someone who entered the United States with a visiting visa to change to student status. We've talked about a few other areas regarding student status. So if you have other questions, keep them coming. Keep them coming. We are willing to answer your questions every Wednesday, 12 p.m. Dallas time. That is Central Standard Time. This is free of charge. There is no limit to the number of questions you can ask. For as long as you keep them coming, we'll be willing to answer it. And here is your opportunity to ask all your immigration questions. Please keep the questions coming. Keep the questions coming. We are waiting. Keep the questions coming. This is an opportunity to ask all the questions you may have concerning student status. Whether you are inside the US or you are outside the US. Any questions you may have regarding student status, please keep them coming. For today, we have less than 30 minutes to go. This is going to go on every Wednesday, 12 p.m. Dallas time. That is 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. And upon request, we have decided that next week, by God's grace, next week, Wednesday, we'll be answering questions relating to relating to obtaining permanent residence by marriage.
+1 214 501.
So, we'll be discussing next week, by God's grace, questions relating to obtaining permanent residence through marriage. So, if you have questions, you can send it in ahead of time. You can call in during the program. You can send questions on WhatsApp on our number 817-983. I think the last four is 4499. So you can send in your questions through this chat. You can also dial directly to ask your questions. But for today, we are discussing questions relating to student status. Questions relating to student status. Please keep the questions coming. We'll be rounding up in the next 20 minutes, so please keep the questions coming. This will be going on every Wednesday, 12 p.m. Dallas time. That is 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. If there are no questions, there will be nothing to talk about, because I'm an immigration attorney, so I really don't have questions that I can be talking about. It is only when you ask questions that I can address it. We can spend an hour or two without achieving anything if there are no questions. But if there are questions, yes, I will be willing to answer it. So questions on student status, keep them coming. This is a free opportunity. No consultation is required. It's free of charge. Send in your questions. And you can also tell your friends so that you don't monopolize this opportunity. It's a free program for all. It was conceived out of the desire to educate people, because I've practiced law long enough to know the difference between doing something right and making little mistakes. I've seen people that little mistakes caused them or led to Israelite journey. Remember, the Israelites, they spent 40 years for a journey that could have ended in 40 days. I'm sure you don't want to do that. knowledge is power. And America is a country of opportunity. But if you don't have the knowledge, you can prolong your journey. You don't want to rely on street talk, many of which are faulty. That is why we have decided to organize this program and educate people as much as we can. There is no strings attached. I'm not doing this so that you can patronize my office or anything. This is just to disseminate information and educate people. Please send in your questions. I'm getting close to retirement and I want to leave a legacy behind. That is the purpose of this. Please continue to send in your questions. Okay, I think a question just came in. Can someone on F2 get a social security number and driver's license? No and yes. Someone on F2 probably will not get a social security number. However, someone on F2 could get a driver license. In order to get a driver license, you are not required to have a social security. It's not mandatory. If you have it, that is fine. But if you don't have it, it is not mandatory. What is required is for you to be in legal status. Because when you apply for driver license, you have to show your legal status in the U.S. today. There is only, to the best of my knowledge, there's only one state in the entire U.S. as of today where you can obtain driver license without showing evidence of your legal status. But in the other 49 states, you have to present evidence of legal status in order to get driver's license. And of course, F2 is a valid legal status. So if you present on campus, of course, every employer is required by law to report their employment remuneration to the government. And there is no other way to report it except through social security number. So for that reason, if you are on F1 and you get a job on campus, so you take that offer of employment on campus, you take that letter with you to Social Security Administration, and then they will issue Social Security number for you. So it is not automatic that once you are on F1, you are going to get Social Security number. No, it is not automatic. You are going to have to meet those requirements. Okay, I think the questions are coming in now. This question, kindly please explain to us, sir, what is delaying our work permit, having submitted the application since last year, October. Last year, while some of our friends that submitted after my... Well, in as much as I would love to address this, this is actually not the topic of the day. The topic of the day is student status. We are discussing student status today. But let me quickly say this. So many factors are currently causing delays in the issuance of employment authorization. So many factors. One, shortage of staff with USCIS. Shortage of staff with USCIS. Two, funding problem with USCIS. Three, effect of COVID is yet to is yet to subside with USCIS. And 4, the effect of increased enforcement during Donald Trump administration, which led to high immigration enforcement and, of course, higher number of employment authorization applications. But, of course, they are addressing these issues. In December 2021, American Immigration Lawyers Association filed a lawsuit against immigration regarding this delay in the issuance of employment authorization. And the case is still pending, but part of the preliminary settlement in the case, immigration agreed to start issuing employment authorization that is valid for 2 years instead of the initial 1 year. Because what they found out is that by the time they issue an employment authorization for 1 year, before the expiration of the 1 year, people who are still on the line, immigration has not even finished attending to them. The ones that were given 1 year employment authorization, they are back on the queue. So the queue continues to grow. Backlog continues to grow. The backlog, it got to a point that it could be referred to as epidemic. And that was why they decided the 2-year option. However, what I will suggest, I don't even know who's sending this question. What I will suggest is that if we are representing you, contact us to deal with this on a one-on-one basis. But generally, that is what is causing delay right now in the issuance of employment authorization. And this is one of the reasons why immigration has posted the notice that they intend to increase the filing fees so as to meet some of these challenges. So they have posted they have posted the 60 days notice that immigration filing fees will be going up. So this is part of the reason to solve this problem. So the next question. Last year, November, is it still a follow-up? Well, let me tell you, when it comes to immigration, immigration is not a one-cap-fits-all. In fact, I explain that to people all the time. It is not a one-cap-fits-all. We can submit exactly the same thing for 2 people, and the outcome could be different. In this office, we have submitted application for employment authorization for 2 sisters using the same document, filed the same day. One was approved in less than 30 days, and the other was not approved in 1 year. So the question is, the one that was approved in less than 1 day, if she had used a different law office, he would have said that, my lawyers are the best. They did something faster. They did something better. No, that's not the way it works. Immigration is not a one-cap-fits-all. So sometimes a lot of factors, a lot of in-house administrative factors at the immigration office do affect the issuance of employment authorization. Secondly, the category under which each person apply for work authorization also do sometimes affect the speed of issuing this work authorization. For example, there are some applications that can only be treated at a particular office. Let me give you an example. If your employment authorization is based on VAWA, only Vermont Service Center can issue employment authorization. So you can imagine if one office is the only office in the entire United States that is dealing with a particular set of applications, you should know that in that kind of office, there will always be backlog. On the other hand, Some employment authorizations are issued at different service centers. Again, service centers, their processing times are different. Some service centers process certain applications within 6 months, whereas the same exact application are processed much longer in another service center. But the fastest, to my knowledge and experience, when it comes to employment authorization, are the kind of applications that are sent to National Benefit Center. So every case is different. So I keep saying it, immigration is not a one-cap-fits-all. So if you have an EAD that you believe that has been delaying for more than the regular time, yes, contact the office and we'll see what we can do about it. But don't compare it with your friend because every case is different. The next question. How long do you have to wait till you get your green card after applying for asylum? I don't know why people are bringing different topics in today. Anyway, I will answer it since there are no other questions on student visa right now. I will go ahead and answer it. For one, let me explain to you. When you have a pending application for asylum, that is not green card. So you can't even wait for green card. Application for asylum and green card, they are not the same. If you are waiting for application for asylum, what you are waiting for is only asylum. So it is not the same. You can only talk about green card after your asylum has been granted. If your asylum is pending, you cannot talk about green card. If your asylum has been granted, you have to wait 1 year after your asylum has been granted before you can apply for green card based on the asylum that was granted. But you can't talk about green card if your asylum application is pending. If your asylum application has already been approved, yes, 1 year after, you can apply for green card. I hope I've been able to answer that question. Well, this is 2 o'clock in Dallas. Oh, okay. We still have 5 more minutes. Okay. You can still keep the question coming. We still have 5 more minutes. I thought it was 2, but I just checked the time. Now it's 1:55. So keep the questions coming. Or if you have a follow-up from any of the questions that I've answered, keep them coming. We have 5 more minutes to go, and I'm willing to answer more questions. Okay. So do you want me to answer? Yeah, I think somebody just sent a question. Okay, can you get green card on F1 status? Apparently, whoever is asking this question joined us late. And this is one of the challenges when we have to keep going back to questions that we have dealt with in the past. But again, since we are rounding up, I will go ahead and answer it. The question is not a straightforward yes or no question. Can you get green card on F1 visa? It's not a yes or no question. If you are on F1, F1 simply means you are a student. But again, does it mean that a student cannot apply for green card? No, a student can actually apply for green card if you meet the eligibility. For example, if you are a student and you meet the requirement of EB2, National Interest Waiver, yes, you can apply for green card while you are still on F1 status. And I believe that we discussed the requirement of EB2 National Interest Waiver. I believe we discussed that last week. So if you didn't join us last week, you can go back and listen to the recorded version. The recorded version is there. Yes, while you are on student visa, you can get green card if you meet the requirement, if you meet other requirements. Because when you are talking about student visa, it is not limited to somebody pursuing undergraduate studies. Somebody who already have a bachelor's degree could also be pursuing a master's degree while on F1 status. So if such a person with a bachelor's degree met the requirement of green card, yes, the person could apply. Somebody with a master's degree, somebody on F1 could also be pursuing a PhD program, a doctoral degree. And if the person with the bachelor's degree or with the master's degree met the requirement of green card, yes, the person could apply for green card while on F1 status. But if none of these requirements are met, if what you mean is upon graduation, yes, even upon graduation, you could apply for green card if the person met the requirements. So, and we have explained some of these requirements either in previous programs or even at the beginning of this program when we were discussing F1 extensively. But to answer your question, the fact that you are on F1 does not stop you from getting a green card. In fact, I do have clients who are on F1 until the day the green card was received. So once you meet the requirement, you can apply for green card while on F1. Okay, another question. Okay, can a visiting visa change to F1 if you go to school here in the USA? Come on. We have discussed all this. We are rounding up right now. Yes, to answer your question, the answer is yes. You can change your status if you are physically present in the United States and you are maintaining legal status. Whether you came in with a visiting visa or any other kind of visa, yes, you can change your status in the United States. We have discussed that. If you want to know more about that, you can go back to listen to the recording of this program. And I think it's 2 p.m. here in Dallas right now. We are going to be rounding up today. As I said earlier, this program will be going on every Wednesday, 12 p.m. Dallas time. That is 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. It is free of charge. You can let your family and friends know about it. You can log in on Wednesdays, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can send in your questions through the chat. You can send it through WhatsApp, through our numbers. You can send it through our YouTube channel. You can send in your question. We have also concluded that next week, by God's grace, we'll be discussing we'll be answering questions relating to obtaining green card through marriage. That is the question we'll be discussing next week. Please remember to join us. For now, we will say good afternoon as we are in Dallas. Another interesting thing about our office, we try as much as possible to put smiles in our client faces.
As soon as we call that client, it's such a great feeling. I mean, at first when we're pranking them, I feel so bad.
I was coming from work. Because like I told you, I'm like a member of this family. And call Asekun, he wants to talk to you.
There is a strategy that we like to do. We like to surprise them. We would call and Mr. Olu would talk to them, letting them know, well, maybe something has gone wrong with their case.
He made it look as if there was no approval. But then I announced, okay, I'm coming to your office. He said, okay, but just drive carefully and things like that. So okay, I'm waiting for you. Then when I came into the office, even the receptionist, her face was just blank. What is happening? He said, okay, let me tell him that you're around. I went to the office. He had already assembled the entire staff. And when I came in, wow, the balloon just busted. When he said, well, this is what, he made it look as if it was going to be like, and then he now, congratulations. He didn't say you were approved, he said, we have been approved.
They get so excited, they're happy, they start crying, they're just super excited. I had times where I cry with them because you feel what they're feeling. And you understand what they go through, and it, like I mentioned, like we all handle their case, we all know their cases, and it's like I am one of them, and I understand what's going on, and I'm happy for them that it's finally ended and they are now where they want to be. That is our main goal.
And I jumped. I didn't know how or where the strength came from. I didn't even think I could knock him down. I held his neck because that particular issue was so naughty. But God just used him and everything was resolved and I got my approval. The entire office, they were so happy, they were jubilating as if it was one of them or their own child.
Having someone go from a super low to a high of something, such a positive result, it feels amazing, honestly.
It's really, really a big challenge. But again, we were able to put smiles in our face and we were able to get her substantial amount of money from the insurance company. Even after paying all our medical bills, she was able to smile to the bank.
Our clients love us because we care. Their experiences are our experiences. Their joy is our joy. Their sorrow is our sorrow. So we really, really care about everyone that walks through those doors. And I think that that's what makes us special.
And then I rolled on the ground. All of them, I was, Nigerians, how we react to issues. I was rolling on the ground, thanking God. Is that not caring what I was wearing or who I was looking. But the good thing is that the entire office was happy with me, not for me, because they felt that it was their win, it was their own. And we all celebrated. It was a good thing.
I was looking for Lawyer Asekun for help concerning my immigration status because everything was upside down. Because I couldn't believe, I was even thinking maybe I'll be sent out back to Nigeria. So on getting to know him, he explained everything to me, what I'm going to do, that he's going to do everything. So fortunately for me, everything was done from him. Dr. Lawyer Asekun is the best lawyer so far in Texas because I can introduce as many as whoever is having problem, especially when it comes to immigration. I'm going to introduce Lawyer Asekun because he's the best lawyer. So far, so good.
Our goal here is to make our clients happy, especially in the area of immigration, family law, and personal injury.